There is a difference between those who keep going and those who stop. It is not talent. It is not luck. It is not the city they were born in or the family they came from. The difference is something far more fundamental, far more personal, and far more within your control than most people are willing to admit. The difference is what a person has learned, internalized, and decided to live by. The lessons they have accepted as truth and the lessons they have refused to hear. That is the separation. That is the line between those who win and those who quit. Now think about what it means to quit. Not the moment of walking away from something that no longer serves you. That can be wisdom. But the quitting I am talking about is the deeper kind. The kind where a person stops believing that effort leads to result. The kind where someone decides that because progress is slow, it must not be happening. The kind where a person looks at the distance between where they are and where they want to be, feels overwhelmed, and turns around. That kind of quitting does not happen in a single dramatic moment. It happens quietly day after day in the small decisions to skip the discipline, to delay the commitment, to wait for conditions that will never be perfect. And here is the first truth I want you to sit with. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Not enthusiasm, not inspiration, not a brilliant strategy written on a notepad at 2 a.m. The bridge is discipline. And a bridge, if you do not maintain it, does not hold. People set goals with genuine excitement. They feel it, they believe it. But when Monday becomes Tuesday and Tuesday becomes a week and the feelings begin to fade, the person without discipline has nothing to stand on. The bridge was never built. The goal floated out there like a destination on the other side of a river with no way across. Think about what water does to rock. Not the dramatic crash of a wave, but the steady drip of a stream over a surface it touches every single day. The rock does not move. The rock does not acknowledge the water. For a long time, nothing appears to change. But the water does not care about appearances. The water simply shows up, and over time, over consistent and patient time, that water carves a canyon. That is what discipline does to your life. It is not flashy. It will not impress anyone in the short term. But over time, it carves something that cannot be denied. Now ask yourself honestly, not the version of yourself you present to others, but the one you are alone with at the end of the day. Is your effort daily? Is your discipline consistent? Or are you working in bursts of inspiration followed by long stretches of waiting to feel motivated again? Because those who win do not wait for motivation. They show up regardless. The feeling follows the action, not the other way around. Let me tell you something important. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Read that again slowly, because most people hear it and nod and then go back to looking for the complicated answer. A few simple disciplines practiced every day. Not 100 things done once. Not a massive overhaul of your life in a single weekend. A few. Simple. Every day. The person who wins is often not the most talented person in the room. They are the one who identified what mattered, decided to do it consistently, and did not stop when it got boring, because it will get boring. Discipline is not always exciting. It is not supposed to be. Excitement is not the goal. Results are the goal. Picture a farmer who plants in the spring. The work is early. The ground is hard. The weather is uncertain. And there is nothing to show for weeks. Does the farmer stop planting because the crop has not appeared yet? Does the farmer stand in the empty field and say the effort is not working? No. The farmer understands something that people who quit have never truly accepted. The gap between planting and harvest is not a sign that the work is failing. It is just the nature of growth. You plant in one season and you reap in another. If you stop planting because you cannot yet see the harvest, you guarantee you will have nothing to reap. The men and women who quit are almost always quitting in the planting season. They walk away before the harvest ever had a chance to come. And what is devastating about that is not just the loss of that particular result, it is the lesson it teaches the mind. Every time you quit before the result appears, you train yourself to believe that effort does not pay. You build a habit of abandoning, and like all habits, it becomes easier to do each time. One day you quit something hard, then something medium, then eventually you quit things before they even begin. because the mind has learned to associate effort with futility. Let that sink in. Quitting is a habit, and so is finishing. So is showing up. So is discipline. The habits you build today are building the person you will be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, at the end of your life. And the question is not whether habits are forming, they always are. The question is which ones. Now, understand something important. There is a conversation that happens inside every person at the moment of difficulty. You know this conversation. You have had it. The moment when the work is hard, the progress is invisible, and the easier path is right there, the choice to stop, to rest indefinitely, to tell yourself you will try again tomorrow. And in that moment, every person who has ever built something meaningful has chosen the harder answer, not once, every time. That is not because they felt differently from you. It is not because the difficulty was smaller for them. It is because they had accepted a truth you still might be resisting. The pain of discipline is real, but the pain of regret is permanent. We must all suffer one of two things: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. That is not a statement of pessimism. That is a statement of freedom, because it tells you that you get to choose your pain. The person of discipline suffers when the alarm goes off early. They suffer when they choose the difficult conversation over the comfortable silence. They suffer when they delay gratification for a result that is months away. That suffering is real. I will not minimize it. But it ends. It ends every single day, replaced by progress, by confidence, by the compound interest of consistent effort. The pain of regret does not work that way. It does not come in the morning and leave by noon. It compounds in the other direction. It grows heavier with every year that passes. It becomes the weight that sits on a person as they look back at what they could have built if they had stayed, if they had pushed, if they had chosen discipline when discipline was hard. Think about what it means to carry regret for years. Not the healthy kind of reflection that leads to better decisions, but the corrosive kind that comes from knowing you had the ability and you chose not to use it. That is a specific and unrelenting weight. And the tragic thing is that it was not inevitable. It was a choice made in a moment that felt small, repeated in moments that also felt small, until the accumulation became undeniable. Now ask yourself this honestly: which pain are you currently choosing? Not in the abstract, not in the philosophical sense, but today, right now, in the actual decisions you are making. Are you choosing the discipline that will hurt in the short term and pay in the long term? Or are you choosing the comfort that feels easy today and becomes the regret you carry tomorrow? Here is a truth that can be difficult to hear. Most people are not failing because the world is against them. Most people are not stuck because they lack resources or opportunity or time. Most people are stuck because they are waiting to feel ready, waiting for the right moment, waiting for someone else to give them permission or encouragement or a guarantee that the effort will work. And while they wait, time does not. Time moves at exactly the same pace for everyone. The person building something and the person waiting to start, they both experience the same number of hours in a day. The difference is what they are doing with those hours. If you really want to do something, you will find a way. If you do not, you will find an excuse. That is one of the most uncomfortable truths a person can sit with, because it removes every external explanation for why things have not happened. It does not say the obstacles are not real. They are real. It does not say the difficulty is not genuine. It is genuine. What it says is this: the person who truly wants the result bad enough will navigate around the obstacle, will work with the difficulty, will figure out the way. And the person who is not truly committed, not deeply, not in the place where it costs them something, that person will find the obstacle and treat it as a stopping point rather than a problem to solve. Think about the difference between a wish and a decision. A wish is pleasant. It costs nothing. You can hold a wish in your mind alongside a dozen contradicting habits and never feel the conflict. A wish is, I would like to be in better health. A decision is, I am changing what I eat and how I move, starting today. and I will not negotiate with myself about it. A wish leaves an escape route. A decision burns the escape route down. The people who win have made decisions, not wishes. They have committed in the place where commitment costs something, where it means giving up the comfortable alternative, where saying yes to one thing means saying no to many others. And this is where many people stop, because making a real decision is frightening. It creates accountability. If you wish for something and it does not happen, you can always say you were not truly committed, and somehow that protects the ego. But if you decide, if you commit fully and publicly and internally, then you are measuring yourself against that commitment every day. That vulnerability is uncomfortable, but it is also the only way forward. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you made a decision about your life that actually cost you something in the moment? Not a decision that was easy, but one that required you to give up a comfort, to face a fear, to hold yourself accountable in a way that you could not escape. Because those are the decisions that change a life. The easy ones do not move the needle. The ones that require something from you, those are the ones that separate people. Motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. This is the sequence that most people have backwards. They believe that if they can just stay motivated enough, the behavior will follow. So they consume more content, they read more books, they watch more speeches, and they wait to feel the surge of motivation that will finally make them act. But here is what actually happens. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are not reliable enough to build a life on. Feelings shift with sleep and weather and news and the mood of the people around you. A life built on the foundation of feeling always ready is a life that moves forward only when conditions cooperate, and conditions rarely cooperate long enough. Habit is different. A habit does not require you to feel anything in particular. A habit is a system that runs regardless of how you feel that morning, regardless of whether the inspiration is present or absent. The person who has built the habit of waking early does not negotiate with themselves at 5 in the morning about whether they feel like it. The decision was made before the alarm rang, built into the architecture of their day. The person who has built the habit of working before distraction enters does not ask themselves every morning whether they feel motivated to do focused work. They do it, and the feeling follows. Think about the roots of a tree in a storm. When the wind comes, what determines whether the tree stands or falls? Not the height, not the appearance, not how impressive the branches look. It is the roots. Roots that were built slowly and visibly underground, in weather that had nothing dramatic about it. The roots were built in the ordinary days when nothing was testing the tree. The habits you build in your ordinary, undramatic, unremarkable days are your roots. When the storm comes, and it always comes, those roots are what hold you. Now ask yourself honestly, what are you building in the ordinary days? Because most people reserve their effort for moments of crisis or high motivation. They push hard when something forces them to, and then coast when nothing is forcing them. But the winners build the roots before the storm. They build the habits before the test. They build the discipline before the difficulty arrives, so that when it does, they are not scrambling to find the strength. The strength is already there, already formed, already tested in the small private moments that no one else saw. You cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. Let that settle in. This is one of the most liberating truths available to any person who feels like they have wasted time, made mistakes, built habits that were not serving them. You do not have to repair everything in a single day. You do not have to arrive at the destination before you are allowed to feel good about your progress. You only have to change the direction, because direction, held consistently, becomes destiny. A ship that adjusts its course by a few degrees does not look dramatically different in the harbor, but 10,000 miles later, it lands on an entirely different continent. The small changes in direction that you make today, the decision to get up when you said you would, to do the work before the distraction, to choose the discipline over the comfort in one small interaction, those changes do not feel significant in the moment. They feel minor, barely worth noting. but they are pointing you somewhere different. And over time, the compounding of small, correct directions adds up to a life that looks nothing like the life of the person who kept drifting, who kept adjusting back toward comfort, who kept telling themselves they would change course tomorrow. This is why consistency in the small things is not a minor point in the philosophy of winning. It is the main point. The big moments, the dramatic breakthroughs, the visible successes, those are the results. They are not the method. The method is the daily, quiet, unspectacular application of a few simple principles in the direction of something you have decided matters to you. Let me tell you something that many people resist hearing for a long time, and then one day understand so clearly it changes everything. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. This is the great reset of perspective that separates people who grow from people who stagnate. The person who wishes it were easier is always looking outward. They are looking at the challenge and hoping it will reduce. They are looking at the competition and hoping it will become less capable. They are looking at the requirements of success and hoping they will become less demanding. And while they look outward and wait, the person who wishes they were better is looking inward. They are asking, what do I need to develop? What skill am I missing? What part of my character is not yet equal to this challenge? And then they go to work on themselves. The major value in life is not what you get. The major value in life is what you become. This is the complete reorientation. Most people measure their progress by what they have acquired, the position, the income, the recognition, the possessions. And those things matter. I am not dismissing them. But they are not the measure. They are the byproduct. What you become in the pursuit, the character, the discipline, the capacity, the resilience, the depth, that is what you get to keep, regardless of whether the external result comes. And more importantly, what you become determines what you are capable of creating next. Picture a person who receives a great opportunity before they are ready for it, before they have developed the character to steward it, the discipline to sustain it, the wisdom to navigate it. What happens? The opportunity collapses under the weight of an unprepared person, not because the opportunity was wrong, but because the person had not yet become what was required to hold it. This is why working harder on yourself than you do on your job is not a philosophical luxury. It is a practical strategy. You are the only constant in every situation you will ever face. Your job will change. Your circumstances will change. The market will change. The people around you will change. But you travel with yourself into every single situation. The investment in what you are becoming is the only investment that never loses its value. Now ask yourself this. In the last year, who have you been becoming? Not what have you accomplished, not what have you acquired, but who have you been in the process of becoming? Are you more capable of handling difficulty than you were a year ago? More disciplined, more clear, more honest with yourself about where you are and where you need to go? Or have you been essentially the same person, waiting for something external to change while the person inside remains unchanged? Success is something you attract by the person you become, not by the effort alone, though effort is necessary, not by the strategy alone, though strategy matters, but by what you are becoming in the ongoing, daily, never-complete project of building a better version of yourself. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Most people have this inverted. They pour their finest energy into their professional role and leave their personal development to whatever is left over at the end of the day, which is usually very little. They upgrade their skills for work because it is required. They upgrade their character and philosophy and habits only when a crisis forces it. But here is what that approach produces. A person who becomes increasingly capable in a narrow lane while remaining exactly the same in the foundational areas that determine the quality of everything else, their relationships, their decision-making, their ability to sustain effort, their sense of who they are and what they stand for. The person who commits to growing in the foundational areas, discipline, clarity of purpose, consistency, honesty, and the capacity to delay gratification, that person does not just get better at their job. They get better at being a human being navigating a complex world. They develop the kind of depth that cannot be given by a promotion or taken away by a setback. Think about what a lens does with sunlight. Individual rays of sunlight scattered across a surface produce warmth, but nothing more. Take that same sunlight and concentrate it through a lens onto a single point, and it produces fire. The energy was always there. The capacity was always there. The only change was focus. This is what personal development does to a life. The energy was always there. The potential was always there. But scattered across distraction and inconsistency and half-commitments, it produces warmth at best. Focus directed through the lens of clear values, daily discipline, and a specific direction, it produces something that can change the course of a life. Do not spend major time on minor things. This is the principle of focus applied to your most limited resource, which is not money and is not energy, but is time. Time cannot be recovered. Every hour invested in something that does not align with the direction you have decided to go is an hour borrowed from the life you are trying to build. Not every hour needs to be productive in the narrow sense. Rest has its place. Connection has its place. But the hours of your peak capacity, your sharpest thinking, your greatest energy, those hours deserve to go toward what matters most. Now ask yourself honestly, where are your best hours going? Not your tired hours, not your leftover hours, your best hours. Are they going toward the work that builds the life you want? Are they going toward the relationships that matter? Are they going toward becoming the person you know you need to become? Or are they going toward distraction, toward the comfortable drift of consuming what others create rather than building what you came here to build? The person who wins is not always the person with the most hours in the day. Everyone has the same hours. The person who wins is the one who is most deliberate about what those hours are used for, most protective of their best energy, most willing to say no to the minor things so that the major things get what they deserve. Affirmation without discipline is the beginning of delusion. This is perhaps the hardest truth in the entire philosophy of winning, because it targets something people believe is unambiguously positive. Positive thinking, self-affirmation, the belief in oneself. These things are not wrong. They are necessary. But they are necessary as fuel, not as the vehicle. The person who affirms their greatness every morning but does not back it with consistent, disciplined action is not building confidence. They are building a gap between who they tell themselves they are and what their actual behavior demonstrates. And that gap, over time, does not make a person feel better. It makes them feel worse. Because somewhere beneath the affirmations, the honest self knows the behavior does not match the belief. Real confidence is not constructed out of positive statements. Real confidence is constructed out of evidence. Evidence that when you commit to something, you follow through. Evidence that when the discipline is required, you apply it. Evidence that you can trust yourself to do what you said you would do, even when no one is watching, even when no one will know, even when the only witness is you. That is confidence that holds under pressure. That is confidence that does not need to be rebuilt every morning from affirmations because it is already supported by the track record of your own behavior. This is the lesson that separates those who merely feel good about their potential from those who actually realize it. The feeling is pleasant. The reality requires work. The feeling requires nothing but a willingness to repeat phrases. The reality requires that on the days when you do not feel like it, when the motivation is absent and the difficulty is present, you still do the thing. You still show up. You still apply the discipline. Not because you feel inspired to, but because you decided to, and you have made the decision not negotiable. Let me ask you a question. Is there something in your life right now, something you have affirmed, something you have told yourself, and perhaps told others you were committed to, where your behavior does not match the statement? Is there a gap between who you say you are and what your daily choices demonstrate? Because that gap is not just a practical problem, it is a philosophical one. It tells you something important about where your actual conviction lives, about whether the commitment has been made at the level that produces action or only at the level that produces talk. The people who quit are not primarily people who gave up on their dreams. They are people who gave up on themselves specifically, on the belief that their own consistent effort could produce the result. And that belief is rebuilt not by more affirmations, but by more evidence. By doing the small thing today, the slightly larger thing tomorrow, and the thing after that. By accumulating proof, one action at a time, that you are someone who follows through. Now, here is where everything comes together. Here is the lesson that sits beneath all the other lessons and makes them possible. The people who win, the ones who do not quit when it gets hard, who do not drift when the motivation fades, who do not wait for perfect conditions that never arrive, those people have accepted one truth that is both simple and profound. No one is coming. No one is coming to rescue the situation. No one is coming to hand them the discipline they need, or the habits they lack, or the focused hours that the life requires. No one is coming to make it easier, or to guarantee that the effort will work, or to ensure that the investment of time and energy and sacrifice will pay off exactly as hoped. They are the answer to their own problem. They always were. And here is what that truth does to a person who accepts it fully, not just intellectually, but in the place where it changes behavior. It creates freedom. Genuine, earned, unshakable freedom. Because when you accept that no one is coming, you stop waiting. You stop looking over your shoulder for the mentor who will appear at exactly the right time, the opportunity that will make everything clear, the moment when the conditions align and the effort becomes easy. You stop waiting, and you start with what you have. You start from where you are. You start imperfectly and incompletely and without guarantee, because those are the only conditions under which anything real has ever been built. The difference between those who win and those who quit is not ultimately about talent or timing or advantage. It is about this moment of acceptance, the moment when a person looks at the life they want, looks at the gap between that life and where they currently stand, and instead of being overwhelmed or resentful or waiting for someone else to close the gap for them, they simply pick up what they need and begin. And they keep beginning. Every day, they keep beginning. Not because they always feel like it, not because the result is guaranteed, not because someone is watching or will applaud, but because they have decided that the person they are becoming in the doing of this work is worth the cost of doing it. That is the separation. That is the line. On one side are the people who are waiting for conditions to change, for motivation to arrive, for the work to become easier, for someone or something to validate their effort before they commit fully. On the other side are the people who have stopped waiting and started building the habits, building the character, building the daily disciplines that compound quietly and without announcement into a life that cannot be taken away because it was not given, it was earned. The tree that survives the storm did not grow its roots the morning the storm arrived. The water that carved the canyon did not ask whether the rock was willing. The bridge between your goals and your accomplishments was never going to be built by inspiration alone. It was always going to require the daily, unglamorous, deeply personal act of choosing discipline when comfort was available, choosing action when waiting was tempting, choosing the person you are becoming over the comfort of remaining who you were. Now you know the lessons. You have always known them. The question that remains, the only question that has ever mattered, is not whether you understand them. It is what you are going to do today, not someday, not when you feel ready, not when the conditions improve. Today, with what you have, from where you are. No more waiting, no more excuses, no one else. Just you, your decision, and the discipline to honor it every single day from here forward.